Now, this young woman started a toy company when she was 18 years of age, and by age 18, she was making $200,000 a year. By age 21, she was the president of the company, and the company now earns $70 million a year. When I was growing up, people said, well, you need to get a good job and you need to work at this place 20 or 30 years and then you may add up to something. That's not true for you guys. Because of what technology has done, you have the ability to be the next founder of Facebook and Google and all of these things that are being found by young people and are changing the face of the planet. Now, understand about the planet, though, we have a tendency to think everybody is like us. You may have seen this before, where it says that if you shrank the population from everybody down to 100, you'll see what some of the things are up there, but it says that 70 would be non-white, not Caucasian, 30 would be white, 80 would live in substandard housing, 70 would be unable to read. All of y'all can read, can't you? 50 would suffer from malnutrition. Anybody here suffer from malnutrition? Only 1 of the 100 would have a college education. So think how honored you are to be in that place if you plan to go to college. And only 6 of the 100 people would own 50% of the wealth. And no one, even with thinking that everybody's got a computer, everybody's on Facebook, everybody's got technology, for the rest of the world, less than 1% does. The world is a different place than we are. You heard a little bit about some of the mission work that I've been doing. I've been going for the last 10 years to Central America. I just recently went to India and China to help build churches over there and to promote interesting things. But in some countries, women can't even get their hair done without being under persecution. So this was a story about how hairdressers in Iraq had to do it on the QT because if anybody knew that they were being beauticians to women, that they could be executed. You may have heard about this story some years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where what happened in this instance was there was a girls' school, and in that particular country, in Saudi Arabia, women all had to wear abayas, you know, the things that completely cover them. And the girls' school caught on fire. The men reported to, the firemen reported to the school, and they would not save the women, the girls who were age, I think, 13 to 17. Yep, 13 to 17. 15 of them burned to death because they wouldn't save them because they didn't have on the right clothes. This is a story from Afghanistan where the headmaster of a girls' school was decapitated in front of his family to make sure people understood you're not supposed to teach girls. The world is a very different place, my friends. But let's get back to North Carolina and the United States. Anybody know what this number is? This is how much for every dollar a man earns, a woman earns. 80.2 cents on the dollar, figures from 2009. And it's interesting because over the time that I've been making this speech, we've been following this data. And I think you might find this interesting. So what that means is the average man makes $42,000 a year, whereas the average woman earns $34,000 a year. But look how it breaks down by race, and I think this is fascinating. Asian women earn more on the dollar than white women do. African American women only earn 68 cents, almost 69 cents, versus white women, and Latina women are under that. Now, ladies, if this is ever going to change, you're going to have to help do it. And I'll show you why. Here is what you see on the baseline axis there is 1955 to 2009. So the tremendously scary thing is, I started making this speech, let's see, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I started right here in 1987. At the time when women were earning 70 cents on the dollar. So think about that. In 22 years, it's only gone up 10 cents. You people will be retired. before there is pay equity if things continue. So you'll see here charted out the differences between men and women by race. You'll see that it really is quite astonishing that the difference is true almost everywhere, with the exception that it's a lot closer with regard to Asian women. Now, this disparity continues if it's just women to men that are high school graduates, which is what that left-hand chart shows. The earnings disparity in the center is if you have a college degree. On the right-hand side is if you have a master's degree. There's still a huge disparity. So this doesn't have anything to do with education. It has to do with the jobs you're getting and, frankly, your sex. It also is true about unemployment. So what you see here is what the level of unemployment is by degree. So you'll notice on the far left, that's high schools. This was before the crash. So this number is about doubled right now. So high school graduates versus people with a PhD are about twice more likely to be unemployed. Now, so are women making strides? Well, some, but not enough. For example, for every woman earning $100,000 or more, there are 4 men. Okay? And CEOs in the Fortune 500, which means how many companies are in the Fortune 500? 500. And how many have female CEOs? 15. But here's the good news. Of the businesses that are being birthed now, 53% of new corporate startups are being run by women. Since 1987, the number of women-owned firms has doubled in the United States. Now, here's a couple things that I want you to pay attention to when you go get your first real job. Women, we talked about the women of color. Female doctors even only make 58 cents on the dollar versus a male doctor. And only 7% of women negotiate their salaries, whereas 57% of men do. Isn't that interesting? So is that because we are all delicate southern flowers and that we don't think we're worth anything? So we go in and we'll say, whatever you offer, I'll take that, that's good. Whereas the men's going, no, I want this and I want that. But that probably does play into the disparity somewhat. Now here's another sobering one. This is the difference between the average Social Security check between men and women. So what that means is if you're earning less for your entire lifetime, when you retire, there's going to be a disparity in how much you get from Social Security versus how much a man gets. Now this is the most important thing that I'm going to show you today. This is a graph from USA Today where what they do is they have compared the number of men in college and what that trajectory is expected to be versus the number of women in college. All right? So what this shows here on the bottom axis is 1985 over to 2010. And what you'll see is that this year there are 10.2 million women in college and there are 7.3 million men in college. Now, is the moral of this story that the minute you get to college, you better go find you a man because there are not many there? It's not a bad point, but it's not what I'm trying to get across here. You think about what that means. If there are 3 million more women coming out of college every year, and notice that the trajectory is it's continuing to increase, that there are more and more women and fewer men. Y'all have to change these statistics that I've showed you. You have to work with people like me where we try to do this. This is a story about that. This says the stats are upsetting. Girls are overtaking boys on college campuses where they now outnumber male students 56 to 44. But who's in leadership? We only have 17 women out of 100 in the United States Senate. We only have 76 women in the United States House out of 435. But there are other countries who are now electing female presidents. The example here says this week, and this was last year, saw the swearing in of 2 groundbreaking female political leaders. The first woman to be elected head of an African state, Liberia's President Sirif, and the first woman chosen president in a major Latin American country, Michelle Bachelet of Chile.